Ancient Egypt, a place and period known for its strange customs, its lost treasures, its deadly curses, and its perfectly preserved mummies. Yes, the seemingly infinite secrets of ancient Egypt could keep Egyptologists occupied for many more millennia. Perhaps the secrets of ancient Egypt could have been unlocked and decoded by now if the lost treasures of Egypt hadn't been looted, and if they'd remained intact, like Tutankhamun's treasures. Although we are in awe of Egypt's impressive engineering marvels, the secrets of its great feats of monumental-sized stone pyramids that everyone from Joe Rogan to Graham Hancock to Giorgio T-sou-ka-los have tried to unravel. What entrances us most about ancient Egypt is its enchantments. There's something undeniably magical about ancient Egypt, and you don't have to be an Egyptologist to realize that every artifact, every statue, every line of hieroglyphics, or of the Egyptian Book of the Dead is infused with magic. Every inscribed cartouche and every carved tomb has been touched by the ancient Egyptian gods and goddesses. Magic, or Heka, as it's called by the Egyptians, was purified and refined in the blazing fires of the hearts and furnaces of the ancient Egyptians. No civilization has ever existed that was as preoccupied with death and the afterlife as ancient Egypt, and no culture has ever celebrated life with such charm, elegance, and sophistication as the ancient Egyptians either. Those tenacious pursuers of the good life and eternal life. The distinctive fashion of the ancient Egyptians is heavily defined by the jewelry and makeup worn by both men and women. The ancient Egyptians are not known for their wide spectrum of fashions in their clothing line, but there is something unquestionably mesmerizing about their jewelry, all of which is infused with a mysterious, mystical essence that goes beyond beauty and glamour. Ancient Egyptian styles of dress were understated. They consisted of little more than white, almost gossamer form-fitting linen dresses, skirts, and robes, most likely to ward off the oppressive heat of the Nile River Valley. In fact, slaves worked in the nude, and children did not wear clothes before the age of 6 or 7, most likely to keep cool. Yet the vibrant colors, the lavish stones, and the precious metals used in ancient Egyptian jewelry suggest an irrepressible inner fire that found expression in the culture's physical adornments. While in most cultures jewelry is worn as a beauty enhancer, ancient Egyptian jewelry, as heavy and ponderous as it was, served a practical magical function. Every stone, every gem, every bar of metal, every facet and aspect of ancient Egyptian jewelry served a spiritual function. Worn by both men and women, ancient Egyptian jewelry was a form of body armor, a form of soul sheathing, designed to protect the wearer from evil, from curses, from sickness, demons, damnation, and death, and also intended to magnetize the wearer to attract money, power, and prosperity. The vast majority of the jewelry pieces worn by ancient Egyptians were designed to function as mekit, amulets, charms or ornaments typically worn around the neck or elsewhere on the body to repel the spells of sorcerers and witches, to prevent demon possession, to deflect curses intended to cause disease, and ultimately to guide the wearer into the afterlife. Amulets, then as now, were also worn to bring good luck, prosperity, and well-being to the wearer. For the ancient Egyptians, magic was indistinguishable from medicine. Disease and illness stemmed from both natural and supernatural forces. Because the cost of professional medical services was prohibited for most, religious rituals of spells and incantations were performed as magical cures were administered. For everything from snake bites to headaches, amulets served a critical role in these healing rituals by evoking the powers of the deities and drawing on the magic cached in various objects. In the design and creation of amulets, every aspect of the amulet was carefully considered. The amulet's desired function often determined its shape, ornamentation, inscription, its materials, as well as the rituals performed to activate its powers. Spiritual beliefs about the nature and the powers of the elements found in the natural environment influenced the choice of materials used in ancient Egyptian jewelry. The precious metal, gold, was seen as being full of magical power since it was associated with the sun and with the skin of the gods and goddesses due to its reflectivity and strength. Gold was believed to transfer to its wearer the attributes of the gods: divinity, power, wisdom, strength, and immortality. As a result, the most coveted amulets and jewelry were made from precious metals like gold, silver, and electrum, an alloy of gold, silver, and bronze. Then, as now, however, amulets made from these materials could only be afforded by the wealthiest of Egyptians. The most precious metal, the one believed to have the utmost power in warding off evil and offering protection, was silver, which, unlike gold, could not be mined in ancient Egypt or in the Egyptian colony of Nubia. Instead, silver had to be imported from Western Asia, making it a prized, scarce commodity. Carnelian, amethyst, jasper, and turquoise, mined from Egypt's eastern deserts and the Sinai, were considered to have empowering protective powers. However, to the ancient Egyptians, the most precious of all gemstones was lapis lazuli, due to its magical, deep, bright blue coloration, which was associated with life and rebirth. To the ancient Egyptians, lapis lazuli was exotic and rare, since it was imported all the way from Afghanistan. Emeralds, amethysts, feldspar, chalcedony, malachite, and tiger's eye were also used to construct amulets. Egyptian metalworkers, gold and silversmiths, gemologists, and engravers were highly creative, resourceful, and innovative. Objects found in nature were also used as amulets, such as feathers, bones, teeth, claws, and shells, worn against the body to transfer the powers and magic found in nature to the wearer. Any object that was imbued with power through a magical ritual could also function as an amulet. Some amulets even performed dual functions as magical talismans as well as seals for legal documents and oaths. Magic could also be drawn from the written word, and some amulets were simply pieces of papyrus or linen with incantations or spells written on them in hieroglyphics, then rolled up and worn in contact with the body, or tucked away in hidden places for protection, or hung on the wall as a plaque amulet. In the ancient world, the ancient Egyptians' craftsmanship was unparalleled. The sophisticated, intricate designs of the amulets, bracelets, rings, necklaces, and broad chest collars the ancient Egyptians fashioned from these gemstones elevated the art of jewelry making to a higher level. Their most unique jewelry accessory was the gorgerine, also called the usek or wesek. The gorgerine consisted of an intricate arrangement of metal discs worn across a bare chest or over a garment. To adorn their pectoral pieces, the ancient Egyptians became highly skilled in fashioning beads from sand or stone and glazing them to make them resemble precious gems. These glazed sand and stone beads, called tejene, meaning shining or dazzling, and also called fayences, were highly versatile and could be painted or dyed to take on a superb spectrum of colors. The invention of these fayences made jewelry and amulets more accessible to the lower classes who could not afford amulets made from precious metals and gemstones. The colors of semi-precious gemstones used in amulets were discerningly selected for their specific spiritual powers and magical associations derived from ancient Egyptian mythology. Although faience beads could be created in any color, they were most often produced in blue and green hues, colors associated with water, life, the heavens, and especially regeneration and rebirth. Red, associated with the destructive forces, the deities' desire for blood sacrifice, and with fire, was also a popular color due to its association with victory and passion. Black objects empowered the wearer with stability and endurance, white with purity and power, and yellow with invincibility, indestructibility, and immortality. Thus, ancient Egyptians selected precious metals and gemstones whose colors embodied the attributes they wished to tap into through magic. Meket or amulets were worn in Egypt as early as the pre-dynastic Pedarian period, and up until the Roman period, they were worn to remind the wearer as well as the gods and demons of the ultimate reigning principle of the universe, justice. Since the power of most amulets was enhanced when in contact with the wearer, especially the wearer's heart, amulets were often designed with a hole or loop through which a string, rope, or chain could be threaded, and so that the amulet could hang from the wearer's neck as a pendant. Amulet rings were also common. In their first incarnations during the early Egyptian dynasties, amulets were shaped to resemble animals or sacred spiritual symbols. Since cats were one of the most sacred animals in ancient Egypt, cat amulets were immensely popular, especially because cats were seen as possessing tremendous magical powers to enact justice and endow the wearer with fertility. The cow, a vital source of nourishment and the mythological mother of the Pharaoh, was also a very sacred animal, associated with the sun and the sky goddesses Hathor, Isis, Nut, Mehedweret, and Bat. Cow amulets were thought to enhance female fertility and were worn by women hoping to conceive. Bull amulets associated with the gods Ptah and Osiris were intended to provide the wearer with male powers of virility and strength, and may have been worn by soldiers. Both the vulture and the cobra were associated with royalty and were worn by pharaohs for protection, and the ibis bird was associated with Thoth, the god of wisdom and writing. The scarab beetle, the insignia of the sun god Ra, and associated with Khepri, the god of the morning sun, was also a powerful symbol of rebirth and regeneration, and was especially important in burial and funerary rituals. The scarab beetle was revered by the ancient Egyptians because they believed this creature controlled the sun's journey across the sky. This belief was inspired by the scarab beetle's daily ritual of rolling a ball of dung across the sand each day as a gift to its mate, a ritual that simulates the rising and setting of the sun. Amulets of scarabs were often placed against the heart of a mummy before it was wrapped in linen bandages, to ensure that, like the sun, the deceased would rise again in the afterlife. Other powerful magical symbols in ancient Egypt were the ankh, also called the key of the Nile, and used in Egyptian hieroglyphics as the symbol of eternal life. The Weshet eye, also called the Eye of Horus or the Uchtat eye, or the Eye of Ra, was a powerful symbol used to protect against envy, curses, disease, and evil spirits. This Eye of Horus, shaped as a hybrid of a human and a falcon eye, and typically made from jasper, draws upon the healing power of the god Horus, who lost his eye in a battle with his uncle Seth, only to have it replaced by the god Thoth, and was a powerful symbol of healing, regeneration, and rebirth. The Deshet pillar, which represents the backbone of the god Osiris, who was eventually murdered by his brother Seth and brought back to life by his wife Isis and son Horus, was also a symbol of rebirth in the afterlife. While the plummet amulet, shaped like a leveling tool used by the Egyptian masons, was integrated into amulets, especially those to be buried with the dead, to help achieve balance and equilibrium in this life and the next. Similar to the ankh, the teat or knot of Isis represents the vagina and uterus, and protective knot placed inside Isis's uterus to prevent the god Seth from harming her unborn child Horus. Due to the success of this knot in protecting her child, and the Book of the Dead's identification of Isis as a source of fertility, knot amulets, also called Isis's blood, or the girdle of Isis, were worn by pregnant women and have been found tucked between the legs of mummies of women who were expecting at the time of their death. Isis knot amulets have also been found alongside the Deshet pillar amulets, presumably as a doubly powerful measure for ensuring that the life force would prevail. Cartouches, circular amulets with a horizontal bar to represent the sun, as well as the Ouroboros, the serpent biting its own tail, were often used to ward off evil spirits and call down divine protection. Other sacred symbols of life and rebirth included the lotus flower and the ka and ba, the teat, the knot of Isis, and the tree of life. The Bet-Dedi, the winged sun, was also used in protection amulets, and the feather of Mat was believed to remind the universe of the importance of justice. It was during the New Kingdom, circa 1550 to 1000 BC, however, that gods and goddesses were incorporated into the design of amulets to imbue the wearer with the specific powers of a particular deity. To prevent miscarriage, Ancient women also wore amulets, especially those with images of Taweret, the goddess of childbirth, and once they had given birth, mothers would swap their Taweret amulets for amulets of Bes, the lion-headed god with the body of a dwarf, or that of Patekos, the chief dwarf god, often depicted in the nude. Due to these dwarfs' special affection for children and vigilance in protecting them from harm, amulets were not only must-have items for the living, but were essential elements of ancient Egyptian burial, funerary, and afterlife rituals, especially during the late period of 664 to 332 BC. The copious amounts of jewelry, including magical amulets, which were buried with the dead in their tombs, have attracted tomb robbers over the years, and may be the reason nearly all pharaonic tombs have been looted, with the exception of the treasures of Tutankhamun's tomb. Among these treasures discovered by Egyptologists are amulets, often in the shape of scarabs, winged scarabs and heart amulets, all sacred symbols of eternal life that were placed under the linen wrappings used to cover mummified corpses. Without exception, within their sarcophaguses, the mummified bodies of the dead are always found with a heart amulet inscribed with instructions from the Book of the Dead. The human heart was seen as the most vital organ of the body, the source of life, intelligence, and morality. Reason and thought, as well as emotions, were thought to emanate from the heart, while the brain was seen as having no purpose at all and was siphoned out and discarded after death. Due to its importance during the mummification process, the heart was placed in a jar, a canopic jar, for its preservation and resuscitation in the afterlife. Because of this, heart amulets were jar-shaped and were believed to be a magical aid for when the soul is faced with the tests of eternal judgment, in particular the weighing of their heart by the scales of judgment. With the heart placed on one side of the scales of judgment and Mat, the force of eternal truth and justice, represented by a feather, placed on the other side of the scale, the heart was assessed to see how righteous the person had been. Heart amulets and heart scarab amulets, scarabs that took the place of the heart during the journey into the afterlife, were designed to assist the heart in not giving any testimony on behalf of the deceased that would cause their heart to outweigh the feather when each were placed on the scales of judgment. If the soul passed this test, their soul and body would be reunited for resurrection in the afterlife, and the deceased would be granted eternal life. To improve the soul's chances of being resurrected in the afterlife, winged scarabs were also placed over the mummy's chest, the wings of the scarab allowing the deceased to soar through the sky and move with the sun as it's reborn. Since the body would be needed intact in the afterlife, 2-finger amulets were placed on the lower torso of mummies over the incision created during the mummification process. 2-finger amulets of equal size to human fingers were believed to heal these wounds. Ancient Egyptians were also buried with sheptis, small funerary figurines of humans. Sheptis were initially included in burial chambers as a backup body for the deceased, a body for them to be resurrected into in case their physical body did not survive. But tombs were later stocked with as many of them as possible to ensure that the resurrected soul would have a retinue of servants in the afterlife. Amulets for the dead also included images of the 4 sons of Horus, each of these figures possessing a human body with a different type of head. A human an ape, a jackal, and a falcon. The dead were also provided with other amulets to assure their resurrection in the afterlife, such as curved, pillow-like amulets that were positioned to protect and support the heads of the deceased and keep them in a more upright position, a practice believed to ensure their awakening in the afterlife. Perhaps more than anything else, it was the Egyptians' unwavering, unshakable faith in the afterlife that motivated their prolific creation of amulets and their attention to detail. For the ancient Egyptians, amulets were an investment in their future, their new life beyond the one on this plane. And since that life was promised to be full of everlasting joy, they spared no expense in ensuring their rebirth on the other side. When viewed through this lens of hope, anticipation, and zealousness, the magic secreted away in the amulets of the ancient Egyptians truly comes alive.